Hello and welcome to SC20 News Desk. I'm Michael Hakkarinen, and today I'm joined for an interview with Kevin Hayden, the chair of SCinet at this year's conference.
Thank you, Michael. I'm Kevin Hayden. I'm from Argonne National Laboratory. I'm a network engineer there. I've been working there for 26 years, and about 15 years ago, they asked me if I wanted to participate in the supercomputing conference. So I went originally as a member of the fiber team, where I terminated fiber optics and installed fiber for the booths for the exhibitors. And then after I did that for a couple of years, I became the team lead for the fiber team, and then I moved to the Edge Networks team, which is more of what I do in my day job. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I became the executive director for Jason Zarowski at SC18, and then moved my way in. At some point, I was asked to be the SCinet chair, and that's why I am this year.
Excellent. So you went from fiber to Edge Networks to now SCinet chair. So what exactly is SCinet, and what does it mean to be chair of that project?
So SCinet is the high-speed, high-performance network that's used at the supercomputing conference every year. If you've ever gone to the conference, you've used our services. We provide all the wireless, all the wired connections for the conference. We provide the high-speed network that all the researchers for NRE, Indus, and XNet use. It's really the backbone of the conference. You know, if you didn't have that wireless network, attendees wouldn't be as engaged as they are. We provide all the wired connections in the tutorial rooms so that the attendees can actually do hands-on tutorials and experiments during the conference. It's really a great thing that we do, and you know, most of the convention centers have their own wireless systems, but we like to provide our own so that we know exactly what's going on. We know that the performance is going to be what the exhibitors expect. Plus, with the high-speed portion, that's not something that a conference center can provide. It's definitely a very high-tech, specific network that meets the needs of the researchers.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this year SCinet is celebrating 30 years at the conference. Is that correct?
It is our 30th year. We started in, I believe it was 1991 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's grown a lot. We went from a 10 megabit connection to the booths this year. Well, last year, we'll say last year, since this year didn't physically happen. We were offering 100 gigabit connections to the booths, and the bandwidth to the convention center overall was only 245 megabits, which, if you think about that, your home network is quicker than that nowadays. And that was considered a high-speed, high-intensity network at the time. And last year, we offered 4.22 terabits per second. So it has grown monumentally. It's hard to even fathom how much it's grown over the years.
So those are big changes to go from 256 megabytes to, did you just say 4 terabytes?
4.22 terabytes, enough to download the entire Netflix library in 42 seconds.
Oh, and you know, I think I may have actually watched the entire Netflix library. So
I think we've all done that in the past 9 months.
Maybe I'll have to download like HBO Max or Disney or something like that. Now that we're promoting all of the different online media streaming services. But that's incredible. Like, what does it take to deliver that type of bandwidth? What exactly does it entail to make that happen?
Well, it takes hundreds of volunteers from, I believe we had 19 different countries represented last year at SC within SCinet, and millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment that's loaned to us or that we borrow from different contributors. You know, all the different major network providers provide us equipment, but I think the biggest thing that people kind of overlook because they don't see it is that bandwidth that we're provided from the different carriers. Without that, it would be very difficult for us to provide the network that we do make. You know, we certainly appreciate everything we get from the hardware manufacturers and software manufacturers, but it's those you physically see, but it's that the outside bandwidth that we get that a lot of times people overlook because they're just like, oh, it's only fiber. Well, trying to get that fiber to the convention center is one of our hardest jobs that we do every year. And this year was going to be particularly challenging in Atlanta because it was a brand new, it was our first time at the Georgia World Congress Center, so we had to physically dig fiber into the building.
So you've literally had to transform the way you've been providing connectivity to the conference. And as they say with transformers, there's more than meets the eye. Like you just pointed out, a lot of people aren't seeing what's happening. Can you tell us, like, what does that mean for your team this year, the difference between SC19 and SC20?
So our challenge and our goal every year is to build the physical network. This year that didn't happen, and we had alternatives. We had plans for a hybrid conference or more of a regional exhibition for the researchers to participate. And in the end, we couldn't come through with those just because of the travel restrictions and trying to get equipment places it needed to be. It was just not going to happen. So we're going fully virtual. Right now, this would have been our last day of staging. This is where all the equipment typically would have been already in place at the convention center, already online, already configured and ready to go. And this would have been where we take our 1 week break before we come back to the convention center to move everything into its final resting place. And, it's taking people that don't like to be seen. We asked them to go out and say, we need you to talk about SCinet, what it is that you and your team do every year, so that we could show the world what we do, who we are. And before this year even started, I decided that I wanted to make SCinet more about the volunteers, not necessarily about the hardware or the network that we make. Of course, we were going to make the best, fastest network in the world, but I wanted to put that focus back on the people that make it happen. And network people don't like to be in the spotlight. They don't like to have their faces shown. They like to just kind of work behind the scenes and make everything happen. But my team, I have an incredible team that this year came together and provided some fantastic content that I think everybody's going to appreciate. And maybe they'll get to learn a little bit more about SCinet, who we are, what we do, and the things that we make happen.
So I want to come back to something you just mentioned. You used the words hybrid and virtual, and I've heard this like new vocabulary in 2020 that we are going to like pivot to a virtual conference, a hybrid conference. We do this in education with blended learning, and I can't help but assume that there are changes that you have made to the conference for SC20 that even when this pandemic is over might be sticky. What kind of changes do you think are going to carry over even when the pandemic is behind us?
Well, I'll avoid your question for a second, just to, when we went hybrid, so I think people don't think that we did anything early on. So the planning for SCinet it really starts in November of the previous year. So right now the planning is already starting for SC21. So we already had an architecture and plan. We were already talking to contributors, trying to find out what equipment we could get, what network we could really build. And then halfway through the year, we had to pivot, as everybody likes to say, and we had to try to start planning for a hybrid conference. Well, if one person showed up at the conference, we still had to build exactly the same network. But we also had to add that portion of, well, what if these exhibitors or if these researchers still want to do research, but they can't physically come to the convention center? We started thinking about how can we bring the network to them. So then we had to redesign the network again. And then once we went fully virtual, we decided, okay, we need to talk about SCinet and who we are. And that's coming back to your question. I think that the virtual content that we created, I think it's going to be a great recruitment material for the future, so that people can really see what, like I said, what we do and who we are. And I think that's something that'll stick around forever. I think that portion, I think we need to continue that every year so that people really can get to see what we are and what we do. And I'd like to see that stick around.
That's a good point. And we've heard that from several other interviews, that by switching to a virtual or blended environment, you allow yourself multiple delivery methods for people who couldn't normally attend the conference, but you also create this preservation, this sort of like library of material to be used year after year. I want to come back. You kept using the word pivot, and I think that what's really happening is that you're transforming. And as a transformer, I want to ask you, are you more Optimus Prime or Bumblebee?
Ooh, I'm not very agile, so let's say Optimus Prime.
Okay, then who would you say on your team is the bumblebee? Who's the person who's done? Is there anybody on your team that you, or specific people that you need to share some super recognition for the super work they've done on the supercomputing conference?
So before I started, when I was chosen as the SCinet chair, I was told surround yourself with good people, and I did. The whole team is amazing. My management team, I have Matt Zukauskas, who I won't say what he's going to become, but most of my management team is either former chairs or future SCinet chairs, and it really has helped me. They've had great advice for me and helped me get through this with the changing environment. There's not really one specific person that I can name. They're all fantastic. Everybody really stepped up and did a great job. It's a ton of work, and they provided great content for us for the virtual conference. And I think everybody's going to enjoy what we see and what they did. And like I said, there's not one person that really is above another because everybody did such a fantastic job.
Excellent. One more question before we wrap up. I'd like to come back to what you were talking about at the beginning and how you became involved with SCinet and the SC conference. What advice would you have to a conference attendee who wants to get involved with SCinet specifically in future years?
So there's a link on the SC20 website they can go to ask for information about SCinet or to even volunteer for, and not just for SCinet, but for any of the teams within the conference. It's a great organization. It really has made me a better network engineer in my day job. We're all volunteers. I think that's the most important thing to remember is that we're volunteers, but our home organizations do typically provide transportation and housing for us to go to the conference. So if you want to volunteer, make sure you either can afford to pay for yourself to come or that your management will support you for coming to the conference. It's in the end, and that's what part of these this virtual content that we created. I think it'll be good to show your management to say, look, this is the skills and what I will gain by going to the conference. It's not just going and talking to people and having fun. It's an educational time. You really do learn a lot coming to the conference.
So we've heard a lot about diversity at this year's conference by making the content available to people who maybe normally couldn't attend because of distance or traveling. But we've also heard a lot about diversity. How is SCinet involved in these endeavors with diversity at the conference this year?
So since 2015, there's been the WINS program within SCinet. It's Women in IT Networking at SC. And it focuses on the gender diversity within the networking world. And we've had, I'm not exactly sure the number of participants over the years, but it's focusing on mid to high level career women within the networking field. And this year we have a number of past WINS participants that are on my team as team leads. And actually, overall, I have 48% of my entire team are female. So we were really working on the gender diversity, and starting next year, we're going to start working more on the just diversity overall. So the WINS participants have done a fantastic job. They brought in a whole different view of how things should be done. And I'm really, I was a mentor in 2015 for one of the WINS participants, and she has gone on to do fabulous things within SCinet, and it's a great program.
I'm muted. Let's try that again. I always forget to click the mute button. It's the bane of our existence in this Zoom StreamYard world. Well, thank you, Kevin. Thank you for all of your work and your team and everybody involved at SCinet to make this an excellent conference. And also thank you for your time in meeting with us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
And thank you, everybody who's been watching. Kevin, I hope that we all get a chance to meet you in person, everybody involved, maybe not this year, but hopefully in 2021. And for all of those watching, stay tuned to SC20 for more interviews from the International Conference for High Performance Computing, Networking, Storage, and Analysis. Thanks.
Thank you.